Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. In today's video, I'm going to be sharing my recipe for these delicious aloo rotis or aloo parathas. Now these are basically roti stuffed with potatoes, and the potatoes spiced up with some pepper, garlic, and other seasonings. And it is something that's very delicious, served alongside any type of vegetarian or meat dish. Alright guys, the first step when making your potato roti is to start to prepare the potato mixture. So to make the potato mixture, you're going to need some potatoes, of course. And all I've done is started to peel my potatoes, and I'm just cutting them into small chunks. Now the smaller you cut them, the faster they're going to cook in your pot. So you can cut them whatever size that you want, depending on how much time you have on your hands. And once you cut them up, you're going to go ahead and store them in a bowl full of cool water. The reason why we do this is so this way the potatoes do not oxidize or basically turn brown, because then that'll change the color of the whole filling in the end. So once you get all of those potatoes peeled and chopped up, you're going to go ahead and put on a pot with some boiling water. And then once your water comes up to a boil, you're going to add in some salt. So once you add in all of that salt, you're going to dump in all of your potatoes that you washed and you peeled and you chopped up. And we're basically going to cook these potatoes until they are fork tender. That basically means that once you can stick a fork throughout the potato and it doesn't have too much give or crunch, then it will be done. And for this step, do not overcook your potatoes, because if you allow them to get way too mushy, it's going to fall out of the roti. So once you put those potatoes in the pot to boil, it's time to prepare all of the fresh seasonings that's going to go into the potato mixture. So on my board here, I have some chopped up culantro. I've chopped it very finely, and I've chopped up my garlic very finely, as you guys can see I'm doing right now. You want to make sure to get these as small as possible, because if you make them too big, when you go to roll out the roti is going to pop with all of the big chunks of the seasonings on the inside. So chop it as fine as you can. And after I chop up my garlic, I am also going to chop up some hot pepper. Remember, just as with any of my recipes, use as much or as little hot pepper as you'd like. I like my food really spicy, so I'm going to add about a half of a scotch bonnet pepper. When I make potato roti, I also like to use the green edges from the scallions or green onions. I like the color that it imparts on the dish, and I just like the flavor of getting a little bite of scallion in there. Now I'm just using the green parts because they're more tender, and I'm slicing them very, very, very thin. So this way they will not burst throughout the roti. And once you slice them up, just give them a quick rough chop. And I always want to let you guys know you could always go the old school way and use a lorha and sill or a masala brick. You could also use one of these mortar and pestles to pound all of your ingredients together. These do a great job of getting everything nice and fine, because sometimes when you chop it by hand, you don't get that really nice fine texture. So my potatoes are all done, guys. As you guys can see, when I stick a fork through the potato, it goes through perfectly. There's not too much give, and they're perfect and ready to come out of the pot. So I'm going to drain them right now. So I've drained my potatoes, and I allowed all of that water that was on them to drain off properly. And now I'm going in with a little bit of butter. I'm going in with all of my seasoning mixture, which is the culantro, the hot pepper, the scallions, and the garlic that I grinded up really well. And once you add those ingredients in, you're going to go in with your fork or a potato masher, and you're just going to mash it up really well until everything's nice and fine. Some people, when they make the potato roti, they might also put in a little bit of ground jeera. I prefer not to, because I'd rather put that in like an aloo pie or something like that if I'm making it. If you want to add the ground jeera, feel free to do so as well. Now, you just want to mash this till this is smooth, and you want to taste it for salt, and you can also add a little black pepper if you want to. Now it's time to start working on the dough that's going to encase that potato filling. So in my bowl here, I have some regular all-purpose flour. I've gone in with a little bit of baking powder. I've also gone in with a little bit of salt. If you didn't want to use salt, you could also add in a little pinch of sugar. I find that when you add a little bit of salt or sugar into your dough, it makes it really nice and soft. I also went in there with some regular cooking oil. You could use vegetable oil, olive oil. You could even use a little butter if you want. And once you add that in, you're going to mix it up really well. So once you mix in that oil and the salt, you are going to start streaming in some very warm water. You need to use warm water, so this way the dough will come together properly. If you use cold water, it's going to make it very stiff. So I'm going to mix that in. You want to get a nice soft dough, almost as if you were making a dal puri. Whenever you make any type of filled roti, you want to make that dough nice and soft and stretchy, because if you make it too hard, then the filling will definitely pop out of the edges. Once you add in enough warm water, you're going to get a nice sticky dough, as you guys can see I have here. All you're going to start doing now is punching it down with the back of your hand, and you're going to begin kneading it. Now, I do not like to knead the dough and then fold it over on itself, because I find that it gets very stiff if you do that. What I like to do is this punching method. And then I like to grab all of the sides, as you guys can see I'm doing here, flip it over, and then you're going to start to punch it down again. And I also went in there with a little bit more oil. That's just to help smooth the dough out and make it nice and soft. So you want to keep doing this motion, punching it down, grabbing the edges and flipping it over until the dough is smooth on all sides, and then you'll be ready to use your dough. So I finished kneading my dough. As you guys can see, it's nice and smooth all around the edges. It's not sticking to my hand anymore. As my hand touches it, it doesn't stick. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cover this with some plastic wrap, or you can put a wet paper towel on it or a tea towel. And then you are going to allow this to sit for about 15 to 30 minutes. Any time in between that will be just fine. As you guys can see, when I poked it down, it sprung back up. That's how you know you're done kneading and you've built up the gluten. I'm also going on with a little bit more oil, and that's just going to help it from drying out on the top. And then we will cook after the 15 to 30 minutes. Okay guys, so my dough has been sitting for exactly 30 minutes now. Remember, you could do it anywhere from 15 to 30 minutes. If you have a longer time and you want to let it sit for a couple of hours, feel free to do so as well. It's not going to harm the dough at all. So I just took a small ball of my dough. I don't like big rotis, especially when I'm making filled rotis. So it's a very small portion that I took. And what I am doing is I'm just flattening it out. Now, I like to flatten out the edges more so than the middle, especially when you're filling it, because you want the edges to really close over and you do not want very thick edges. You want that filling to be all around the roti. If you were to roll out the middle too thin, all of the filling would actually burst through as you roll it out and you're gonna have a big mess. So I added in about 2 tablespoons of my filling into the piece of dough, and as you guys can see, I'm grabbing up the edges and I'm just pinching them all together. You want to pinch really well, or else again that filling will leak out. And once you get it all filled up and you got the sides grabbed together, you're just going to flatten it all the way out, and you're going to make sure that potato mixture is spread all throughout that roti. And at this point, we're going to cover it with enough dry flour and we're going to begin the rolling process. Now, I do want to mention something, guys. You're going to see that my potato roti does burst around the edges a lot. The only reason that happened is because my potato mixture was a little too soft for my liking. I accidentally overboiled the potatoes, but I'm still sharing the video with you guys because it's an honest mistake. It's usually made when people make potato roti because sometimes the potato just overcooks, and when it overcooks, it has too much water content in it, making it too mushy. So when you roll it, it pops out. But I'm still going to share it with you guys because I make mistakes. I'm not the best chef in the world, and my aloo roti still tasted amazing, regardless if it popped out of the edges or not. So you're going to roll it out really well, get those sides rolled out so this way they're not too thick, and you want to get it to about 1/4 of an inch thickness. Once you finish rolling your roti, you want to make sure to have your pan heated up to a medium-high heat. It's going to depend on your stove. You don't want it too high to make it burn, and you do not want it too low, or else the roti will take too long to cook and it's going to dry out. So as you guys can see, I'm using a non-stick shallow pan here. If you have a tawa, feel free to use that, but I'm using this pan because I wanted to show you guys that you can make any type of roti in a pan other than a tawa. You don't need a tawa in your kitchen. So once you add it in, you're going to allow it to sit there for about 30 seconds, and then you're going to flip right away. I usually do that, especially when I'm making dal puri, because I don't like the front side or the top side to dry out, because it'll dry out really quick with the filling inside. As soon as you flip it, you're going to oil it really well with any type of oil you want. I'm using vegetable oil today, but if you wanted to use some ghee or butter, Crisco, or some olive oil, feel free to do so. As soon as you oil that side, you're going to flip it over again and oil this other side. And then we're going to flip again, and we're just going to keep cooking until it's nice and golden brown on all edges. My roti's been cooking for about 1.5 to 2 minutes now. It might take a little longer or a little less for you guys. And as you guys can see, there's a few little golden brown spots around the edges. That's exactly how I like my roti. I do not like very crunchy roti at all. I like for it to be nice and soft. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to remove this from the pan because it is done. And if your roti starts to puff up, you're just going to press down on any holes and it'll puff up all the way. So I just wanted to show you guys, before I go into the tasting and the finished product, I wanted to show you guys me rolling out another one of the rotis. Another big tip I have for you guys is to make sure you keep your board well floured, because if you do not and that potato mixture falls out and begins to stick, you're going to have such a mess on your hands. Trust me, I've had worse messes than just a little bit of potato falling out the edges. I've had the whole roti just burst apart and I've had to throw it away. So keep it well floured, keep your rolling pin floured, and apply an even pressure with the rolling pin, because you do not want a very thick roti in the middle, and you also don't want it very thick around the edges, or else it will not cook properly. You want to try to get it as thin as possible. And as far as cooking the roti goes, if you like your roti very crispy, then you can leave it on the pan for a longer time. This one's a little crispier than my others. I left it on here on purpose so I could show you guys what a crispy aloo roti would look like. very golden brown on all of the edges, and very delicious nonetheless. So as I mentioned in the beginning of the video, I was doing a little bit of a vegetarian day, so I made some bhaji and chana that I simmered in some coconut milk. That's going to be a recipe coming up very, very soon, guys, so be on the lookout for that. And it's the perfect accompaniment to this aloo roti. So I want to show you guys my potato roti, or my aloo roti. I just ripped a piece of it. Oh my gosh, guys, it's so good. Now, as I said in my video, it's going to spill out a little bit. It was one of my first time making it. I do need some more practice with it. That's why all the potato is like bursting out of the edges basically, but it's so delicious. The roti is still nice and soft. The potato mixture is so flavorful, so nice and spicy, just the way I like it. So I'm going to rip off a little piece and give it a try now. I'm telling you guys, so soft. This is some good stuff, guys. I hope you give this recipe a try. Practice along with me because you know what? Hey, I have some ways to go. I hope to not have all that potato filling spilling out the edges, but I can't even talk right now. It's so good. But I hope you guys give it a try. Subscribe, give it a thumbs up, leave those beautiful comments down below. I'll see you guys on my next video. Bye, guys.
What did she do? It's really asking me.
You want some roti? You want some of the roti? The roti? You want the roti? You're gonna get the roti? You want some of the roti?
No.
Want the roti?
And I figured.
Uh-oh, Andrew's taking the roti.
She almost went in for it.
Almost got it. Almost got it.
No.
So Matthew wants some roti. Matthew, who you made all that roti for?